not only did they retcon that in Shippuden, they doubled down on that retcon in Boruto when they do the time travel arc.
That just annoys me. And I
Time
think
travel?
Boruto's
Yeah,
its own thing.
It's
Why,
very...
why? I'm just getting into like fucking kaiju tanuki versus frog stuff. Time travel? What are you talking about?
As far as your purposes are, act like Boruto doesn't exist until you're done with it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I have our poser extraordinaire, Natai.
It's good to be here with you, Alex.
Is it? You
No.
say that, but I
No,
highly doubt it.
I don't know why I keep this bit up, because it's a lie every single time.
And you get worse and worse at the lie every time.
Listen, it doesn't help when you're on 4 hours of sleep, right? Like, I don't know what I thought to myself, like, trying to hold up this bit, but, you know, you try. You miss 90% of the shots you don't take.
Yep. And joining us after a very long hiatus, we have Ian.
Nice to be back. Thank you for having me. I think this is this the first time I'm actually on with Natai? Or has it?
No,
there was one other.
It's a second time we're both on. Yeah, I missed all the others except for the first.
Which is funny because Ian would not probably be on at all if it weren't for Natai. Yeah. But almost every time he's been on, it's been without Natai.
Mm-hmm. I keep missing you, babe. I don't know what's up, man.
It's also my third different apartment.
Yeah, it's your third apartment on the podcast. Congratulations,
every
by
time
the way.
I come on.
Yeah, it's you've had a lot of changes since the last time you were on. The last time you were on, I believe, was when we were talking about like hype moments in anime last year.
And it was before because I had a couple of videos do well last year, and it was before that. I think last time I was on, I was working on the Full Metal video.
Yes, it's come out since then, and it was a great video, by the way.
I also don't even think I knew I was going to make a Dandadan video at that point.
And that video blew up.
That video did pretty well, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was Dandadan. It was probably bound to do pretty well.
Worked out for me.
See, we didn't put out a Dandadan video, and we suck, so...
Last fall, McCain and Dandadan were apparently the two hot series that you should have been making videos on.
Apparently.
No. Black Clover is where it's at, bro.
Black Clover God. In 2020. Go back to 2020 and make a Black Clover video. That would be my advice for you.
You know, whenever Black Clover Shippuden ever comes out, it'll be fun. It'll be great. Just make another video.
I hope they do it.
Probably
Not
once
to
they
completely
finish
derail what we're supposed to talk about today, but I guess it would be an adaptation, which is what we're talking
about.
Yeah.
Speaking of
bad adaptations that turned into good adaptations.
Well, you know what's funny is I think the whole thing that led to us wanting to do this is us talking about how bad the adaptation has been, the anime adaptation has been for the beginning after the end.
So
I have heard.
So personally, because I haven't seen beginning after the end, so for me,
it's bad. So it's really bad.
I have no interest. I'm good. Sorry. But so today we're gonna talk about like bad anime adaptations. For me, what got me thinking about it is, so Ian did make a video a while ago about FMA 2003, which I really like that video. I
highly recommend you go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, it's called The Other Full Metal Alchemist, and it's an hour-long video pretty much about the 03 version of 2003. Now, I personally am a massive fan of the original show. For all of its flaws, I do love it quite a lot. And
while it's okay to be wrong.
Did you watch it first? I've been trying to figure out.
So I watched it first.
See, I've been trying to do like soft like analysis of this of like are there people who watched Brotherhood first? I'm sure there are because everyone exists on the internet, but I feel like the majority of people I've found that like 03 more watched 03 first. And then that becomes like that's your idea of what Full Metal Alchemist is. And if you watch Brotherhood first, that becomes your idea of what Full Metal Alchemist is.
So it's interesting because before I watched FMA, so the pitch a friend of mine made for me was watch 03 before Brotherhood, because once you watch Brotherhood, 03 kind of becomes obsolete. And I didn't know like the thing was it's like Brotherhood is like the definitive adaptation. But I think there's so much to like about 03 in terms of tone and atmosphere and just the sheer melancholy in that show that I think just like really spoke to me, and like really grabbed my attention watching it for the first time. It's because as much as I love Brotherhood, and I don't disagree that it's the better show, like I think about the lighting in that show, and I think about the certain aspects of like just the tone, and it still like resonates, you know, and the soundtrack, like that main theme that they have is absolutely like it's classic.
The music and the production in that show are two of the things I will never complain about.
Yeah,
I complained a lot about like the plot,
story
and
content,
stuff, but the production of that show is like bones.
It's a well produced anime.
Yeah,
and we will
just because an anime is well produced doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good or bad.
Guilty Crown.
Yeah.
That first episode.
But we will link the video in the description. I would highly recommend anyone go check it out. It's a great video. Even if I don't agree entirely with it, it's I really enjoy watching that video.
Yeah, I mean, FMA 03, I know there's a lot of people over the years that have kind of said, you know, definitely watch both, but I feel like the opinion has kind of turned a little bit in recent years about that. It's like, you know, just watch Brotherhood, it's fine.
Yeah, I think when I was starting out watching anime, which was now 10 years ago, which is terrifying for many reasons.
Oh no, I started watching anime in 96. It's not that terrifying for you
We got nothing on you. I wasn't even born.
But like right when I was like fully getting like immersed in the community and like what should I watch? Like what are like the classic animes that you should classic anime that you should watch. Right. It was very much like you should watch Fullmetal Alchemist, and it was like, okay, you should watch both, or because Brotherhood had just come out a couple years prior, or just finished, and so it was very much like, you know, I constantly was seeing people debating which is the better one, you know, which ending do you like better, what should you watch, and now 10 years later I feel like it's just Brotherhood. Yeah, like I don't hear people talk about 03 like ever, to be perfectly honest. I guess not ever. I see, because like I'm like the feed on Twitter will send you like stuff that you want, so I like Fullmetal Alchemist stuff, and then it will send me people tweeting about 03. But I just feel like in terms of like the zeitgeist, it's just like, oh, you should watch Fullmetal Alchemist, and then this is the anime for Fullmetal Alchemist, and it's just Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe it's because Brotherhood is more accessible for more people?
At this point, 100%. You can't even watch 03 without going,
which is a crime.
Places.
Which is a crime.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I say that in the video. Like, I might like Brotherhood more, but like, you should be able to watch 03. Like, it should be available
somewhere.
Yeah,
legally.
Yeah, it just sucks. Like, it was on Funimation forever. It was on Netflix forever.
It was on Netflix, yeah.
And then it got removed 2 years ago. 3. I did the research for the video. I don't remember. It got removed a couple years ago, and it just hasn't been, you know,
picked up by anyone. And then since Aniplex got the license back, they haven't released new Blu-rays. I think you can still buy something. I wonder. Do you think they're working on like some kind of a restoration for it before they put a new Blu-ray package together?
I doubt it. I
just don't think it would make enough money to be worth that amount of work.
Well, all I'm saying is if G-Kids got it, it definitely would, and it'd probably be in theaters at least 5 times. Because that's what they're doing with everything right now.
Shambhala, which I still haven't watched Shambhala.
You haven't watched Shambhala yet?
I said I was going to do it and make a video on it, and I just haven't.
I need your take on Shambhala, because I love 03, but Shambhala is an interesting movie to say the least. I'd love to hear it. It's cool. But also I would assume that like a Blu-ray would cost a lot of money, and I just don't like... I doubt like they would like it would make its money back just.
I mean, if they did a restoration for Brotherhood, maybe that might make some money.
Yeah, but does that even need it, right?
Yeah, I don't think so, because it's available easily on streaming services.
No, I don't think
it's a shame, because 03 is like a very. It's also for like it's kind of a time capsule, because it's from the time of more shows getting anime original endings, which we can get more into. which we don't see as much nowadays for the
And
better.
that's one of the that's one of the ways I feel like an anime adaptation can be bad, that it has an anime original ending. And this usually happens, or I should say happen, because like Natai said, this doesn't happen anywhere near as much anymore. No. When anime would, or a manga series or a light novel series would get picked up for adaptation while it was still releasing, and then the anime adaptation would rapidly catch up to the source material, and then they'd be like, well, fuck, we have one of two things we can do. We can either have a go read the source material ending, which always sucks, or we can come up with our own original ending. And then you have another like fork in the road. Well, do we involve the original creator? Do we not involve the original creator?
So what was the deal with Soul Eater? Because I've never seen that show, and I know
there's a lot behind the scenes with Soul Eater. Bones thought that it was going to be so good that it was going to dethrone the big three. Like, it like legitimately thought this back in the day. And so they put a ton of money into it. And it nearly bankrupted the studio.
Amazing. I've seen
like,
some clips.
visually Soul Eater, especially like the first 30 episodes, look amazing. But by about episode 33, they start deviating from the source material almost entirely because they caught up to where it was releasing. And they went to the creator and they're like, so what are your ideas for how you're going to finish this? And the creator was like, So they came up with this. The ending of Soul Eater is so fucking convoluted. And the worst part is, even if you go to the source material's ending is just as bad.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame.
It's different, but it's just as bad.
Because that's like one of the biggest examples I always hear about in terms of like original endings from that era. Like we can get more into more modern shows that like have that, but from like the 2000s, like it's FMA, Soul Calibur. Not Soul Calibur, Soul Eater.
Soul Calibur?
No, that's a different. If only there was a Soul Calibur anime, I wish. But that's like the main two examples I can think of. And to be perfectly honest, I like the original FMA ending for all of its like differences.
Well, to be fair, something that was equally as popular back then was just they'd make a season or two of an anime adaptation, and it would just be go read the source material ending, and like those are always just like, okay, just twist my balls harder. Okay, I would have rather you come up with a shitty ending.
Because you didn't, at least for in the US, you didn't have like easy access to a lot of the manga as you do now.
Yeah, or even worse if it was a light novel.
Mm-hmm.
Light novels, what are those?
Yeah.
Back then? Let's be honest.
Bro, I cannot tell you how tempting it must have been for Studio Shaft to have made a go read the source material ending for Bakemonogatari. That must have been the most tempting little dangling cherry out there that they said no to.
Thank God.
See, but I don't think, like at large, changing stuff from the source material does not necessarily mean it's a bad adaptation.
Sure.
No.
Right? Like,
yeah, and I'm in favor of it, especially if it's little things that enhance like the characters, the story, context. Like a great example of that is what David Production has done with the JoJo's adaptation. They've added little things here and there that have added so much character to the world, added more context behind certain motivations. Great example is the photograph from part 3. That's not in the manga.
It's a cool scene.
I have that somewhere, and I don't know. I'm not going to get up and find it. I have like
you have that? That's
I have
awesome.
a Polaroid of
We
that.
just talked about it recently in our part 4 adaptation. The stuff with putting the upcoming characters in the background. Like
also,
that's
like Kira showing up earlier.
Like Kira shows up in the background in like episode 2 if you pay attention.
Also, in part 4 specifically, they restructure like the that one arc later in the season where it's like 3 different fights in the same day. Are there like specific examples that you like, Ian, about like shows that like change from the source material for the
so better? A lot of times I feel like it's pacing and stuff. Like, just a small example, we can talk about Chainsaw Man a little bit, because man, that is some discourse. But like in the first couple episodes of Chainsaw Man, they just kind of cut out a small fight that's like a couple pages in the manga, and it just helps the pacing of the beginning of the story a lot
Aki's
better
morning routine.
to not have it. Yeah, they added the Aki stuff that I think makes that episode a lot better. But I'm gonna get on my fate soapbox real quick.
Do it. That's why you're here, bro. I need it.
Long. But
wait, are we talking about Fate Stay Night?
So a really good example of this, I think, is the Heavensfield movies, which I just recently watched, so it's top of mind.
Awesome.
So that is the like Sakura route versus like Unlimited Blade Works is the Rin route, and then there's the Saber route. Nobody cares about this other than me, but I'm going to talk about it.
I just started watching Fate, bro. I'm loving this shit.
In the Heavensfield movies, it's dozens of hours of a light novel that you have to adapt. A visual novel that you have to adapt into 3 2-hour movies, and so you have to cut a lot of stuff out. And so what they do is they cut out a lot of the side stuff, and they add a bunch of anime original scenes that are specifically for Sakura. And so it makes them flow really well as films about her and Shiro and everything else that's going on. And you just kind of cut out some other stuff that is interesting but wouldn't be in service of her story. And I think that's a really good way of doing it. Is we're going to just kind of cut out the side content, and it that does suck if you're like a fan of the original work or you like some of the characters that get some of that characterization through the side content. But they specifically go about it like we're going to focus on this storyline, and it makes it a really tight package and a really like focused experience, and that's really nice. It's also UFO table, so it looks
gorgeous,
unbelievable.
it's interesting you say, because going that route of adapting like source material, whether it's a visual novel or a manga or whatever, to a movie, is like such a different route, you could say. Like I think I remember when a silent voice came out. Love that film. A silent movie. It's not my day, man. A silent voice. I love that movie, and I remember after watching it, like looking online and seeing the discourse around the movie, manga readers would say that that it's like a bad adaptation because it cuts a lot of stuff from the manga, and so in that sense is a bad adaptation. But they adapted for being a film, and they focused on what would strengthen that. I haven't read the manga, so I don't know how much they cut out, but
I think that's a really interesting conversation whenever you have to adapt something into a time frame or a time that's not going to fit. There's no way you're going to be able to fit all of the content. And I
feel like that happens anytime you adapt from one medium to another. There's always going to be something you either 100%. Have to cut or add or put some kind of a transition in here that wasn't in the original.
But it's a difference between like a something. Exactly. Like from a TV show where you have multiple seasons, maybe there's more time for stuff that when you turn it into a movie, like you don't have that. Or even like
a trilogy of movies.
Yeah,
where you have more than one movie to get it all in.
Yeah, like, and even you said trilogy, but not every movie adaptation would have that luxury of they would greenlight like 3 movies to get produced.
True.
You also have to think about pacing, right? Like that's something that's just so difficult, right? I feel like, again, I have also not read the Silent Voice manga. I know sort of what they cut out, but I don't know specifics. But I feel like if you adapted that 1-to-1, either you have to do 2 films and then the first film would not have an ending, or it would just be, all of a sudden you're making a 3.5-hour film with a part in the middle that's probably not super well paced. Like that movie's so well paced that sure. It just feels like a situation where, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you do adapt it 1-to-1, I don't know how good of a film that is. But if you don't adapt it 1-to-1, people are going to complain that you left stuff out.
I feel like if you're going to do it that way, if you really wanted to do 1-to-1 as much as possible, you'd probably want to do it as like a mini series, maybe like 5 or 6 episodes.
TV anime. Absolutely.
Again, sometimes it's just not something in the cards. Like, you either get approved for one thing or another.
John and I talked about this a lot because obviously he read a lot of different source material, whether it was manga, light novels, web novels, all kinds of shit. And manhwa. And we always had this conversation. It's like, is it a bad adaptation, a bad anime adaptation, if it's already a bad source material, but they make it good?
No.
Do you don't think that's a good adaptation or a bad adaptation? Because, like, I'll give you a good example of a bad, quote-unquote bad manga that has a great anime adaptation. It's K-On! K-On's manga is not good, but the anime is spectacular.
Well, it's a good adaptation because it elevates the source material, right?
I think I would say it would be a good adaptation.
Yeah.
Because, like, the video I'm working on right now, I use working on in quotes because it's been 6 months since I've uploaded, and I really need to upload a video. It's about Elusive Samurai, which is from what I've read, I haven't read, I'm not caught up, is a
beautiful
good manga.
show.
But the anime is just, like, it just elevates it to such an extent that it made me go read the manga, and I was like, okay, the manga's good. Amazing. But, like, they really did a really good job sort of animating it, and the production's great.
Demon Slayer also.
Yeah.
Demon Slayer is probably another example. Not as I think people still like that manga before the incredible adaptation of it. But yeah, I just think if you elevate it, it is a good adaptation. But I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you're like, because what if you? I'm trying to think of an example of a show where they. I mean, I was thinking of an example where they did this incorrectly, which is the Fuka adaptation, where the
oh my
the
god,
author changed.
How could you bring that back?
Well, because I was trying to think of an adaptation where they changed something to make it better, like changed a huge plot point to make it better, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I can think of Fuka where they changed.
That
like,
show will never leave my brain. That show will never. I remember like that show is it's unhinged the way the route it goes. It's crazy.
Oh my god!
Like,
what a great 75 chapter manga. That we will not talk about the rest of that 200 chapters that happened after.
Definitely.
That.
Definitely.
Oh my goodness.
And that it's weird how with that show it's such a random show to bring up, but it's weird how with that show they changed like the sort of, I don't know if to call it the emotional highlight of the manga to some extent, but the peak of
it's the twist. It's like the thing people remember from the manga. And
the moment from
he
the
was
manga.
like, wait, no, never mind.
Yeah, and the anime is like, never mind. We're not doing it. It's crazy. What a bonkers show. I there are screenshots from that anime that's live rent free in my head. Just like I have this screenshot of the other girl wearing this like ski mask and she's like waving at me, hey, what's up? It's crazy.
That also wasn't a great adaptation from what I remember production wise, other than the music. The music was good. I'm not going to make us talk about Fuka any longer than we need to in 2025.
No, I remember when this anime aired, and I vividly remember Natai's reaction.
I see, like my brain won't function when I'm talking about this show. It won't allow me. But I think there's a point to be made where like, okay, so there's like a section when you're adapting a manga, for example, there's a section of the manga that people genuinely don't think is good. So when you adapt it, what do? You just adapt it as is, or do you like skip through it, or like for it to be a better story? Like with Demon Slayer, with the last season that they're the Hashiro training, I kind of like I don't blame them for like going the route of, you know, adapting it and adding more stuff to it, even though it's an arc that like people would be, oh, it's like filler. But it is in the manga, so they kind of did what they could with it to make it more. There is the cynical argument of, oh, they're milking it, so making a whole season out of it. I'm not gonna.
Like, well, I think they had the content and they knew they wanted to make the finale into trilogy of movies, so they were like, okay, how do we bridge this content to get to the movies? And I think that's how that kind of happened.
And I think they did what they could with it. You know.
Yeah. I have a question to Ty. Is your cat near the microphone? I swear to God, I hear purring.
She just jumped up here.
I swear. I thought I was going nuts. I thought I was going crazy. I was like,
decided it's time to be on my lap. Yeah.
What is that purring sound I hear?
My bad. Sorry.
Thought I was going crazy.
It's my cat breathing technique. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, with Demon Slayer, I think it's. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just to finish my point, I think like with Demon Slayer, I don't think it's a like. I think they did the best they could with like what they got in terms of like still using that arc, and you know, I think it's fine.
It's a great adaptation. I think if we're solely judging it on an adaptation level, it's an incredible adaptation.
Yeah,
you're adding.
But in terms of,
I never think adding content is a bad. I'm trying to think of an example, and I can't. Adding extra content is a bad thing. unless
Filler?
it mischaracterizes the characters, but that's a whole other.
Yeah, I would
words.
say adding content is only really bad if it completely changes character motivations, if it completely changes the context of the plot, if it changes the context of the setting.
But again, wouldn't you count filler as adding content to an adaptation?
Yes, but I wouldn't say it's all good.
Yeah, and
That's what I'm saying. You
usually
know,
doesn't change because it's filler. It doesn't usually change motivations or character dynamics. Or
I mean,
stuff like that.
the go-to with this oftentimes is Naruto. I wouldn't say Naruto is awful because
no filler
of its
route,
filler.
boys. No filler so far.
I watched every.
I
episode.
wouldn't
Bro,
say
how?
Watched
It's so
every
many.
single one.
I wouldn't say that there's any, at least not that I can recall. Granted, it's been several years since I watched all of Naruto, but I cannot recall any filler or filler arc that radically changed character arcs, motivations, the setting, the plot, like the overall plot of Naruto. I can't think of anything.
They do some stuff towards the middle of the end of Shippuden with the flashback stuff that I personally kind of don't like, but I'm not like mad about. They do some like retconning, I think, in the series itself, so that's why I'm not like mad about it. But they kind of make it seem more like, oh yeah, all the main characters were friends with him while they were kids. It was just the village that was against them, and it's like no, that's not how the story was set.
Not only did they retcon that in Shippuden, they double down on that retcon in Boruto when they do the time travel arc.
That just annoys me. And
Time travel.
Boruto is its own thing.
It's
What? I'm just getting into like fucking kaiju tanuki versus frog stuff. Time travel. What are you talking about?
As far as your purposes are, act like Boruto doesn't exist until you're done with.
Speaking of bad anime adaptations, although is it a bad adaptation if the manga isn't that great either?
I don't know, because that's kind of like that where they added a bunch of stuff and then like Dragon Ball Super doesn't adapt some of the stuff that's been coming out
true,
that people
yeah.
really like.
Super was weird.
Long running shonen adaptations are just like such a different breed, where like
They're
you can make
built
the
different.
argument
Oh, they're different.
parts of One Piece are a bad adaptation. What's the
Yeah.
one they're redoing now? The arc they're redoing now because the pacing
Fishman
was so
Island.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're doing like one chapter per like 30-minute episode or something like that.
Because
like,
One Piece is specifically kind of in a boat of its own. Hey, because it's kind of because Toei will never let go of that fucking golden goose. Like every week there needs to be an episode until like they, for the most part, like I think that anime like it just will suffer from bad pacing. Lately they've actually been really good with the Egghead arc.
That's what I've heard.
But and like to be fair, just like adaptation, the whole end of, and I won't get into spoilers, but animating the stuff at the end of Wano arc was incredible, like absolutely incredible. So there's good and bad to it, right? But that's the hope with like the remake coming up, and I'm that it'll fix my main issue with the anime, which is the pacing, because
the pacing is atrocious.
It's just so slow.
Can I ask a question? This is related to One Piece. Because in the beginning, when they were doing the adaptation, the localization for One Piece and several other anime, 4Kids was doing it. And it was awful. Like
it's just
like,
a lollipop.
Yeah,
it's not a cigarette.
Exactly.
It's a lollipop.
So is that kind of meddling, I feel like, can we all agree, is just bad adaptation? Like meddling for no reason?
Yeah.
Like
I think was it also in Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime adaptation, they changed the guns to finger guns? It's like, what?
America.
Freeze.
That's
America.
Such a
Could you imagine, Ian, as an American, could you imagine if a cop came up to you and just went, freeze?
I'd be pretty confused, to be honest.
I just go, Naga kotowa.
Yeah, I just think that's such a relic of anime is for like these shows are for kids.
Yeah.
Deal where they wanted to make it Saturday morning cartoon friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also,
I mean,
the weird, people aren't gonna like the Brock's jelly donuts.
Yeah, they aren't gonna understand a rice ball.
People aren't gonna understand that this is a rice ball. Okay.
I love how American producers have no faith in their viewers.
Bro, I mean, we even talked about it recently with the Mononoke, like when they brought Mononoke
that dub
over.
is weird. They add so many lines where like they further explain what's going on in that dub. It's crazy to compare the two, like the subbed and the dubbed.
And it's crazy. Like... It's crazy to think that if Hayao Miyazaki hadn't actually stood up for what he and his team had created, we would have gotten like an hour 15-minute cut of Mononoke.
Bro, imagine if Trigger didn't stand up for like their version of Cyberpunk Edge Runners, we wouldn't get Rebecca.
Exactly.
The lolly stays.
It's so the both of these examples have directors standing up and just uttering one sentence phrases that are just iconic, with Hayao Miyazaki just saying no cuts, and Hiroyuki Imaishi just going the lowly stays.
That's a really good example of a great adaptation.
Yeah.
Of like taking a source and totally, right? Because I feel like that's such a different example of an adaptation, because there is no source. I mean, there is a source world that you're building off of.
Yeah, it's with Edge Runners, it's you have this established world, but you're telling an original story within it.
Yeah, and I think that's harder than
I
people
love stuff like that,
do.
and I wish that more anime studios would be willing to do that, especially with older properties with established worlds. It's like, take this established world, especially if the original creator is cool with it, and create an original story within it.
Star Wars Visions.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, if we just to take it back to bad adaptations, because we just enjoy negativity around here, right? So much.
It does better now.
Yeah. I don't think there's been a higher profile adaptation in terms of its downfall, like Promised Neverland.
Oh God, the first season's an absolute fucking masterpiece. Like, unironically, I fucking loved the first season. So hyped for the second season. Not having read the manga or anything, knowing anything about the source material, right? And the second season happens, and I'm like, what?
It got so bad, I didn't watch past the first episode because I was just scared to experience that story in anime form. That's the thing. I was like,
have you read it?
I haven't read it. I have no idea what happens past the first season. I've
read it. I've read the source material since.
Because the craziest thing about that, as someone who has read the entire manga now because of how bad the second season was.
Have you watched the second season before reading the manga?
I watched it up to the point where they cut out an entire arc, and then I went, I'm gonna read. So I actually haven't finished it. I need to go back and finish it just for the pure pain of seeing the slideshow at the end of all the rest of the story in one episode.
So actually a slideshow. Oh my God.
Yeah, yes. It's like literally like, and then this happened, and it's like just a still image. It's insane. The thing that hurts the most about that is twofold. One, that the first season is like a perfect adaptation. Like if you asked me what are some of the best adaptations of manga you've ever seen, that would be, I think, in my top 3, if not top 5.
It's a brilliant piece of TV.
It's
first season.
It's everything you'd want, elevated from how the manga does it for the most part. Yeah. I mean, the music. And that's the thing. You don't have the music in the manga, and you actually
Isabel's lullaby.
Oh, yeah, it's unbelievable.
And that OP, man. Oh.
And so to go from that to how bad the second season is already just going to be disappointing in and of itself. But they cut the best arc in the manga. They cut it from the second season for time, I guess.
That's a whole other conversation. Something golden something.
For some reason I'm blanking. It is the pond, and now I'm looking like a fake manga reader. But what is it? What is the pond? What is the name of the pond?
Oh my God! It's been a while now.
Goldie Pond. It's Goldie Pond. Oh my God. Oh, that's the best arc.
On Golden Pond is the name of a really good movie, though. You should watch that.
That is the best arc in the manga. It features Yugo, who's like one of my, if not my favorite character. That's not Emma, in the manga. And in the anime, in the manga they show up at the bunker and like he's there. He's the only one living there, and they meet him. In the anime, they open the door where he's supposed to be sitting, and he's not there. But his box of cookies is. So they clearly knew what they were doing, as like an FU to the audience. It's the most.
Do you think they were trolling?
Yes, it's one of the most insane things I've ever seen, where they like and then they add his name to the wall and like they do like these little things like, oh, you know what we're doing, but he's not here, and it's oh my god.
That's like Hideaki Anno level of like trolling your fans. That's incredible.
I think that's a whole other conversation about Eva, but like it's like it just feels so mean spirited. That whole second season feels so mean spirited to me that my most crackpot like conspiracy theory about like any anime is that the author was like, I am tired of my series. I want you to end it in one season right now, and this is how you're gonna do it. Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The manga
Did success hurt him that bad? What have they done to him?
I just don't. It doesn't make any sense from like Shueisha's standpoint to be like, we need to stop making this. And they're still making Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone's manga ended like 3 years ago, and they're still making Dr. Stone. Well, I've gone off the deep end about
bro. I was shooting for this. I was waiting for this.
So upset what they did. This
so do you genuinely think that it was like, because clearly they knew about the source material, they knew the stuff that was in it. Do you think that it was like a genuine like lack of passion or respect for the source material?
And the manga was a hit.
It's not like it didn't sell from the author or from Shueisha, and it doesn't make sense to me from Shueisha's standpoint because all they care about is selling manga and making money. And a good adaptation is going to do both of those things.
Yeah.
And like I think at worst, if I was like, oh well, they just kind of wanted to wrap it up, you would have done Goldie Pond in season 2, and then season 3 would have been like, we're just gonna speed run the rest of the series, and that wouldn't have been great, but it would have been, in my mind, a more sensible way to like, we need to make sure this isn't going to be running forever, but we're gonna make the most of the value we can get out of the series. It doesn't make any sense to me to cut the best arc and then just wrap it all up after doing the first season. That's the thing. That's the thing that I don't understand, that I've never ever been able to work out in my mind.
Especially with how good that first season. Like yes. That's not a fluke. You don't just like make that season like by mistake, right?
Right. Like if they had just done this from one season, bad adaptation, we just want to get this out to try to sell the manga and be done with it. Okay, that makes more sense. It's a production thing. It's a higher up thing, corporate, whatever. It's the fact that they gave it one of the best adaptations I've ever seen from a Jump manga in season 1, and then did what they did in season 2. I just like. I've never been able, it's been 4 years now, just never been able to figure out in my mind who would just make this decision. Why it would happen.
We need to find this man. We need to find out who gave that final okay.
It's such a shame that like Japanese anime studios are so secretive about this shit, because if this happened in like an American animation studio, there'd be like a Vice documentary about this shit already.
To be fair, though, with how vitriolic some anime fans can be online, do you blame them for being that secretive?
No, I don't. But one a day, I feel like we're going to find out that there was something behind the scenes going on that caused all this.
Listen, Chainsaw Man had one of the greatest anime adaptations of all time, and Japanese fans didn't like it. Like, can you blame them for being secretive?
I don't even know if, like,
you can't even... As much as people praise Solo Leveling, there were people that said watching him cry in the second season ruined his aura. What the fuck?
Well, that's not even an adaptation thing. That's just people being dumb.
Yeah, I know.
That's nothing to do with the adaptation.
That's why I'm saying you can't trust these fools.
But no, bro, like we mentioned a few times, but I'm hyped for the Chainsaw Man movie. By the way, like having read none of the manga, it's got a couple months. But oh man. But seeing like the discourse around that adaptation made me like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, it was exhausting. Even
it
just
was very exhausting.
You know, I think a lot of it was anecdotal, at least from like, you know, the Blu-ray sales don't really matter in 2023. Is that when that came out?
John and I back in the day had this whole discussion about it, and literally like I was right about it's just like misinformation calling it a flop, because literally like the show in its entirety is owned by Mappa, so they make 100% of the revenue, including Blu-rays. So it's like such a stupid like argument that people wanted to make to enforce a weird narrative around this show, which is so weird. Like this kind of like discourse formed around of all shows Chainsaw Man. You know,
it's just because people like having numbers attached to their arguments, and that is an easy number. Like, you know, we don't get a ton of information from streaming shows. You don't really know you can kind
unless
of guess.
The streaming service just volunteers that information.
Like Netflix will, for a lot of their shows, provide viewership numbers.
Yeah, but Crunchyroll.
But the thing is, you have to trust them. They could inflate those numbers. I mean, if they're self-reporting, you have to, I guess, kind of work on the assumption that they're not lying.
Because even then, I imagine a lot of it's just like, oh, someone clicked on it or it auto-played.
Yeah.
While someone was asleep.
You know. But like I don't want to talk about it too much just because I think it's a good adaptation and we're trying to talk about bad adaptations.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just think it's such a good way to adapt that story with the cinematic way they did it. And it's just sort of, in my mind, when I was reading it, how I imagined it would look because of how much Fujimoto cares about film and how much his work is influenced by film directly.
But you can see that
it was like the perfect way to adapt that story.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the arguments I was seeing in the contrary of, well, it should have been more colorful, make much sense to me. As someone who cares about that story a lot, I don't view it as like, oh, it's just all these splashy. I know the cover pages are like the covers of the manga volumes are, but that's not. Most of the color pages in the manga are a lot more muted. A lot of the world's a lot more muted, and it's just not. I don't know. I didn't quite understand where that like, oh, it's a bad adaptation because it's not colorful enough was coming from.
I've never seen like that argument being made with like more than 2 sentences. That's the weird thing. I've never seen like someone go like I'm waiting for someone to make a YouTube video about this to really get into their head.
I thought you were gonna end that sentence with I've never seen someone make that argument with more than 2 brain cells.
It's Denji in power.
There's the 2 brain cells.
I did forget to mention, and we did like I did have it is written down, but like I think ever since Promised Neverland, the biggest like bad adaptation like in terms of like notoriety is Uzumaki, right?
Oh God, yeah. What a what an absolute failure! Like and what a troll too, because the first episode is so good.
It's just so like you guys know what happened with the production of that whole series and everything.
We did an entire episode on it. Yeah,
it's just so upsetting.
So like I was a little bit out of the loop. Was it like what exactly happened there?
They just didn't have the time or the resources to make everything.
Even though they worked on it for like years, right?
For years.
Yeah, it was just a lot of meddling and corporate stuff, and it wound up being like, okay, either we put out the first episode and it's going to look like this and we have to put out the next couple and they're going to look like the way they did, or we don't put it out at all. And so the idea was, well, the first episode's a perfect adaptation or like of that story, and they would rather have that in the world existing than nothing for how long they worked on it. And so it's just a kind of unfortunate set of circumstances where it was like, well, the rest of it's going to look pretty bad, but at least we'll have
such a
this
shame.
First episode.
Yeah.
It's
a shame because the manga is amazing.
It's like Junji Ito stuff is actually cursed, you know, like that original, like another really bad adaptation is the Junji Ito collection stuff that
none of his work has ever been adapted into anime well.
I just don't think
we talked about this during the Uzumaki spoiler cast. It's like I genuinely don't think, unless we're talking about psychological horror, I don't think that any kind of gore or body horror generally is going to translate well into an anime medium.
No, I just think his stuff is so focused on, it's like something else that we can talk about right now as well, like Berserk, where the art is so detailed and the art is so much of the experience that I just don't think it will ever like, it just takes, you can see how much work it took to make the one episode of Uzumaki, right? It just takes so much work to do it proper justice in an anime form that I think that's why it's so hard to adapt.
With Berserk though, you have
the Berserk 97, I think, does an okay job at some of it.
I think it's a good adaptation.
But then you get to Berserk 2016, and that's god-awful. Now, John defends it by saying it's still the same story, and I'm like, no,
it's not. They literally, they switch stuff around.
Hold on. I'm gonna explain myself. He is technically right, but the visual language of it completely takes away all of the mystique and the darkness and the morbidness away from Berserk.
But it's more than that. Like, Okay. First of all, I don't think that's like a correct assessment in the sense of like they literally switch story stuff around for no reason, and that's already makes it like and they don't like those changes don't make the story better. So in my book, it's a bad adaptation, but. It's not even a good. It's still a bad adaptation because just the act of watching Berserk 2016 is not a good experience because it has all these wild like camera movements and like it's all like it never looks good. Oh my god! Oh my god! Now I can hear it in my ear. That fucking sound design of the sword, like who? Oh my man! You're unlocking memories in my brain now. It's like so. No, it's not a good adaptation. Like say what you will about the '97 adaptation. Like it's
hand drawn.
It'll never look. Yeah, that too. It'll never look as good as the manga. But I think they decided to go for like simpler designs for the characters so that it'll be easier for them to draw them again and again and again, which makes perfect sense because they're adapting it for their own medium. And I think despite it not still kind of being a little bit stiff in terms of the animation, they still make a lot of good stuff with what they got. Like the music in that show is like amazing. It's incredible soundtrack.
Guts theme.
Guts theme. It's literally like iconic. And the background is beautiful in that show. Like in terms of, I still think it does what a good adaptation does. That even if it doesn't elevate the source material, which again it's Berserk. I mean, tough
it would
task.
Be impossible to elevate it without it being like, hey, Ufotable, can you spend the next 10 years making
Ufotable making Berserk? Oh my beloved! But
I've got a proposal for you. I've got a proposal for you. Berserk, adapted by Ufotable, directed by Hideaki Anno.
Bro, I don't know what he'll do to that man. He'll make another trilogy of Eva movies after finishing that.
No, he'll get halfway through and then he'll make a new trilogy of Eva.
Could you imagine a Hideaki Anno adaptation of Berserk where halfway through the eclipse, like Guts like slashes this monster and it turns into manga panels and it's just like Anno talking to the camera. It's like, stop watching this show. Go outside.
Go read the manga.
Go read the manga, yeah.
Why are you here?
Hideaki Anno should do an adaptation for any show you want, and just by the end of it, for you to be like, go outside, talk to a real woman, stop. God, I love that fourth Ava rebuild movie. It's so good.
Which is
you haven't seen it, dude? No.
I've not seen it,
bro.
I need to. And it's the funniest thing is I own the Blu-rays of the first three, and I bought them before they were ever on streaming.
Wait, but you watched the other three?
I have not seen the third one because I finished the first and the second one with some friends, and then they fell asleep during the second one, and so we never watched the third one, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
To be fair, the second one is my least favorite out of the rebuilds, but I would highly recommend you.
Yeah, but the end of the second one is incredible.
I
fell asleep during the watermelon scene, if anyone's wondering about that.
Good shit. But you need to watch the fourth one.
The theme is literally go outside, touch grass.
Even like I won't get into
this film.
Even that like 5 seconds about that fourth Ava movie, rebuild movie. Like there are moments there which gave me PTSD to End of Ava in the best way possible. Good movie.
Yeah.
There are a couple other series that I wanted to mention while we were on the topic of bad adaptations.
Go ahead.
Just kind of not a rapid fire, but a quicker one for a couple where we talked about Black Clover at the beginning. I think that turns into a good adaptation by the end of it, but because it was long running, I believe the first 3 episodes are like a chapter and a half of the manga.
Oh, those are rough. Yeah.
The first,
and boy, does it feel like it.
Yeah, the pacing at the start is so bad, and then around episode like 15 or by episode 20. Gets a little better. Production starts improving a little bit. 40 is where I think it gets good. It's just fucking nice.
Yeah, episode 30.
40 is where it gets good.
Yeah, the in terms of like when the show like actually hits its stride in terms of like becoming an enjoyable show, I think is between the 30 and 40 episode mark for sure.
It's the underwater arc, and then honestly, it's pretty inspiring. Looking at the beginning of that show, but by the end, it's a really good adaptation.
Yeah,
just production wise.
For sure.
of how good it looks in some of those fights they use in sort of the last core of that show. So that's fun. You can start bad, and
that last arc of the anime
chances, and it gets better.
Is legitimately a fun shonen. Like really, like you're on the edge of your seat, actually being like, "Wow, this looks amazing." Yeah.
And then Blue Exorcist, which is another interesting example of it's like a mini FMA.
A weird one.
Where the show came out in 2011 with an anime original ending, and the anime original ending is fine. I don't think it's like horrific. I also don't think it's good. It left me like,
it's kind of
okay, I guess that was the end of the series. And then came back in 2017 with the second season, and then the 5th season just came out, I think.
That's crazy.
I'm caught up. I watched the new season a couple of months ago.
Is it good, the new seasons?
It is good. Blue Exorcist, to me, for its entire run, has been like a 7 out of 10, and it has never really meaningfully been better. I think season 2 is good, a little better than the rest of it, but it's all just like, it's good.
That's kind of crazy. We live in this era where like, oh, we're past that point of shows getting one season adaptation and then you're done. Like, sorry, you're not getting more of the story. I think it's for the best we reach this point where there's a chance a show you like will get the full adaptation treatment.
That's the
now
nice
whether
thing.
that adaptation is good or bad, that's
a whole different
dice
story.
roll.
Like, I really enjoy that Dr. Stone, like I said, is going to get a full adaptation. That's a good adaptation.
What I love is the fact that we're getting these remakes for older shows that never got the chance to shine back in the day.
Fruits Basket?
Fruits Basket. Spice and Wolf.
When is the Oron remake? When am
I
getting Oron Brotherhood? I need to know.
Oron Brotherhood.
No, unironically, yes. This is an anime that needs to be remade.
Because that had to kind of read the manga. I mean, it has an ending, but it's not the manga's ending.
And it is basically a go read the source material ending.
Just go read it.
But now that the source material has ended,
did Deadman Wonderland that had an ending or didn't have an ending? I haven't seen that show.
So it has an like anime original ending, but it's more than that. Like the last 3 episodes just go down the toilet. There's a pacing.
Yeah. So hold on, because not only does it have an anime original ending, that the pacing just absolutely shits the bed in the last 3 or 4 episodes. The entire anime adaptation just rushes through everything.
Yeah.
It's like, here's this, we're here, we're there.
Pacing is like such a telling factor with an adaptation being good or bad, because you can sense that they're like either like really rushing through some stuff, but like because like maybe they're trying to hit a certain point to end the season, or maybe it's like, oh shit, like everything till this point was good, but we need somehow to end this season in a sensible way that doesn't fit with how the manga or novels are structured.
I think if I had to choose between a story I like getting a bad adaptation, pacing wise or production wise, I think I'd choose production wise.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, because you still have a good story, even if you have bad art or animation or bad music, or I mean, bad music can really ruin an experience with anime.
It's one of the main things it has overwritten.
And bad sound design too.
Yeah.
Well, and also bad voice acting, because that can happen. Like, it's happened recently with me with Lazarus's English dub, because Lazarus, the new anime by Shinichiro Watanabe, which we love him here. But it's airing on Adult Swim here in the States, and that's where you're watching it first. So the English dub is coming out first, and until I think the end of May, that was the only way you could watch it.
To be fair though, you're in luck, because that's not a bad adaptation, because it's not adapting anything. It's not an original. Yeah, that was gonna be so it's not a bad adaptation if it doesn't adapt anything.
But the English dub is an adaptation of the Japanese dub.
That's more localization though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it is
I got you, man. I got you.
But localization is an adaptation in another language.
I wouldn't call it adaptation. Localizing stuff.
Bad voice acting can ruin an otherwise good adaptation.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah, sure.
A couple more. I think we're talking about anime original content. I think Kekai Sensen is a good example of that being done well.
Example. Yeah.
When I was watching the first season of that, the anime original stuff was actually like some of my favorite stuff.
Yeah, black and white, bro.
Yeah, because that story is so episodic that having that kind of connective tissue really pulls you forward through the story, I think, and makes it so like the last episode makes sense. Well, the last episode is original, but makes more sense.
To be fair, with Kekai Sensen, I love that show. Like, don't get me wrong, but I do think it does suffer from pacing in terms of like the last stretch of that original season, and you can kind of tell. Yeah, that final episode goes at a breakneck speed, and you're like, whoa, hold on, like you're trying to catch up with the episode, like what is actually going on. But I think the emotional payoff still hits because of the original like anime content that they made with black and white. Like that stuff still works super well and is super compelling. Like I love that. Like it's a perfect example of original anime content being like solid, like genuinely good.
Yeah, I think a good example of just like when you can tell an adaptation is bad, or you can tell anime original content in an adaptation is not well done, particularly with an ending, is the pacing. Suddenly things have escalated in 2 episodes, and we're fighting the final villain right now. It doesn't feel like things have been earned. It doesn't feel like things should be happening right now.
Yeah, that shouldn't be like conflated with escalating stakes, because as you get to a climax, you want escalating stakes. What you want, though, is a chance for those stakes to come about naturally.
Yes.
Also, it's like how. Okay.
I would say it's like Blue Exorcist is a good example of this, where it's a basic, start of a story, main character learning how to use his powers for the first 17 episodes, and then basically they fight a like mid-tier villain, and then I think a couple episodes later they fight the devil, and like it's like the end of the story, and it's like, oh, okay,
we're going
that's
there.
An example of like, oh, this is okay. Like this escalated very quickly.
This would be like in Windbreaker if they just fought some random thug, and then the next episode it's Lucifer.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
It's crazy how like it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and it happens both with bad adaptations and sometimes anime original shows, that near the end, like suddenly, as you said, it escalates in like the last 2 episodes or maybe 3 if you're lucky, but then like the final villain is just transforms into a massive form of itself. Like it's not an adaptation, but like a perfect example is that is BNA in terms of like the pacing being kind of whack, where it's like the ending is kind of like out of nowhere. It's like, oh, it's just a big animal now we're fighting. Like, and it happens a lot of adaptations of shows that, like, again, as you said, like pacing just.
One core stuff is tough, I think, particularly if you're going to do an original ending or just an original. It's just tough to make it paced well, because it's not as short as a film where you can keep it really tight, but it's not a full 26. We have a lot of time to develop subplots and characters.
True.
And so it's really tough to try to land that. That's why Kekai Sensen is such an impressive adaptation the first season, because it does kind of land that in that sort of 12 episode bucket. It's also, I'll say something nice about O3 now.
Yes.
It is why I do think the way O3 handles it is the best that they could with that situation, is because how much time they have to do their own thing. Whether or not I enjoy everything it does is a different question. But if you watch the first quarter of that show is all manga original, but they add some stuff, but they stretch so much of it. Like Hughes is around until the midpoint of the show. Like they stretched the manga content to its limit for what they had. I think it was only about 30 chapters. And so the pacing is very slow the first half of that story. I think it's fine. But then the second half, which was all original, suddenly it's paced.
It picks up.
It's paced well, I think.
Yeah.
I think
to be fair, though,
jumps between the plot points. It starts wrapping stuff up, and it hits like a satisfying climax in a reasonable amount of time.
To be fair, though, I think also like O3, because it's interesting to go back and watch it, because if you watch Brotherhood, there are some characters that appear way later on in the show, and you're like, who are these people? Because they never get introduced. But then you go to O3 and they're like, oh, those are like the proper manga, like, right, proper introduction of these characters. Like, I love Brotherhood. I love it with all my heart. But I think there are parts of it which badly adapt FMA, like the manga. I love Roy Mustang's first appearance in the story in 03 during the chase, during the train fight, where there's like these terrorists trying to like take over this train, and then Roy Mustang shows up, and like it's a really cool introduction for his character. But because Brotherhood sort of assumes that you watched 03 to some extent, that first episode, which is anime original, just kind of feels like a greatest hits of like, oh, look at all these characters that you love so much. And I think that kind of like represents them badly if you watch the show for the first time. It's not like terrible, but as kind of like when you look at it as like a definitive adaptation, that first episode kind of like fails in that aspect because it's anime original and it shows like some characters in a different light that you would have probably wanted them to be actually first introduced, like they were in the manga and 03. So I think that's like an interesting case, that first episode specifically.
I will defend it, but I will say it's the most compelling argument people may have made to me, or just in general, of Brotherhood's adaptation failing, is that first episode. Because it does feel like, hey, here's all these characters and they're all doing stuff, and then they explain
which works well if you watch the original show.
But I definitely think they thought, or to some extent, were like, this is, people have already seen this, so we're going to get through the first part of the story as fast as we can.
Yeah,
and then adapt the rest of it that was never adapted.
Yep.
Yeah. And that, I think that is a bit of a detriment to Brotherhood in particular, because as much as I hate to say it, I feel like Brotherhood could have benefited from like 4 or 5 extra episodes in the beginning to like actually give proper introductions to things.
But you know what that means? Just watch both shows. You get more episodes of Full Metal. Like, what's wrong with that?
Did you know that Brotherhood was actually supposed to be shorter? I don't remember the exact number. It was going to be 52 or 56. I talk about it in the video if you want the exact number.
Yes.
And then they wound up expanding it to 64, and it wound up landing really well because the anime ended. The ending came out about a month after the manga ended.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
It actually timed out perfectly.
That's awesome.
They added the extra episodes.
So you brought up I want to like ask you briefly, Ian, because you brought up earlier about how it's difficult to do like original endings for one core stuff, right? Do you think it's more frustrating when there's a bad adaptation for something like what happened with Promised Neverland, where the first season is really, really good and then the second season shits the bed? Do you think it's more frustrating when you have something like that happen versus just a bad adaptation with one core?
Yes. 100%.
I completely agree
100%.
because that happened with Certain Magical Index's third season, and I will never, ever, ever forgive JC Staff. They ruined the best arc in the entire fucking light novel, and they crammed 7 volumes worth of light novel content into 25 episodes.
Yeah, get pacing. Like I said, it's always pacing. It's always trying to cram stuff into an episode account. I love Raildex so much. First of all, if you've never read Raildex, go read it. They're fucking fun novels. They're amazing.
But I don't know how to read, Alex. I watch anime.
Watch the first 2 seasons of Index. They're pretty good. Watch every season of Railgun. Those are pretty good. Accelerator was pretty good too. But I will never, ever forgive JC Stapp for doing this. Why? Why would you drop the ball? Why? On the best arc in the entire franchise.
JC Stapp dropped the ball on that, on Food Wars to some extent, on like...
Food Wars is another example where it was good at the start, and then the adaptation gets worse. Tokyo Ghoul, a good first season, and then the second season...
Tokyo Ghoul,
totally mischaracterized.
And don't even talk about Tokyo Ghoul Re, which was a whole mess of an adaptation.
Pour one out for the Tokyo Ghoul fans that'll never get a good adaptation.
Every year, it's like there's a new announcement about Tokyo Ghoul and it's like, oh, it's going to be a new remake. It's not. It never is. It's like a cafe or something.
It's an arcade machine or some shit.
It's never a new...
It's like another theater play or whatever.
We'll get a Chosen X anime before we get another Tokyo Ghoul anime.
I definitely agree with you, though, Ian. It's way more frustrating when there's 1 or 2 good seasons, and then they come out with a 3rd or a 4th that's like, it's so bad.
Yeah. Particularly because you have people who become anime-only fans of it, and they really like it, and so they're disappointed, too. Unlike something like Biscuit Hammer, where like from the first frame of the anime it was a bad adaptation, and so it was like, okay, well, I guess I don't need to acknowledge, like, no one's gonna watch this, the manga readers don't like it, and it's just kind of like, well, hands off. It sucks. Like, it still sucks, but I just think it's worse when you start building an anime only fan base, all these other people that are really excited and they're all disappointed.
I cannot tell you how much my heart just fluttered hearing you say Biscuit Hammer.
Shout out to
Biscuit Hammer fans.
Replay value.
But yeah, I make better adaptation. I know it's way more difficult than that.
It makes you appreciate great adaptations even more when you get them.
It really does, and especially now that we're getting some remakes of stuff that maybe didn't get the best adaptations the first time. It makes me hopeful, especially also since we're in an era where it seems like anime studios and production committees are more willing to let anime adaptations breathe.
Yeah.
And not only like help sell the manga or the light novels or whatever, because ostensibly they still do, but also let them be their own thing. Let them have their own fan base.
Yeah. 20 years ago, My Hero would have been a 500 episode anime with 200 episodes of filler. So
and
that's so true.
And Yuru Camp would have been 12 and done.
So before we wrap this up, I'd love it if you could plug your channel, Ian, and let everyone know where you can find your stuff.
Absolutely. You can find me at Be More Brass on YouTube and the Everything app, x.com.
The Everything app. And we'll be sure to link the FMA video in the description.
Yeah, that's still my last video because I haven't uploaded anything in 6 months. So and I won't be uploading anything before this goes up. So eventually I'll release that Elusive Samurai video, but it won't be as long as the
something I need to actually watch because I hear it's really good.
It's great. Right. In terms of adaptation, if we want to end on a good adaptation, that is a great adaptation of a manga.
And also, no promises yet, but we are planning to do a spoiler cast for Apothecary Diaries Season 2, and Ian might be joining us.
If I'm available. That's just the summer is such a tight
like I said, no promises, but I know Ian likes Apothecary Diaries and probably would love to talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm really interested where the second season is going to end, too. Because
me too.
I don't think we're going to get a definite. Well, maybe we will. I guess we'll see. We'll see. Hold off. I'll hold off talking about it.
Will it be a good adaptation or not? We'll have to wait and see.
Seems like a great adaptation. I haven't read the novels.
I will say the first season so far was great, and what I've seen of the second season so far has been great. So then maybe they'll shit the bed at the end. I don't know.
Anime original Apothecary Diaries.
God no! Don't say that, because then they'll do it with Freerun.
Oh, no. Stop. All right. Don't give him more ideas.
I'm not going to curse anything. So thank you, Ian, for joining us. We always love having you on, even though it has been a while. And thank you, everyone, for dropping in to watch us talk about this. Let us know down below what are some of your most infamous bad anime adaptations that you have watched. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you saw and want to see more. You can find links to all the stuff Anime Club After Dark does down below in the description, as well as links to Ian and his channel. So check him out. Subscribe to him if you are not already. With all that being said, I have been your host, Alex, and we will see you next time. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Go watch Kekai Sensen, Alex. God, please.
God dang it. You know, one of these days we got to sync it up to where I throw a baseball and you catch it across the country.
That'd be fun.